morning. Good morning, everybody. Today we are going to discuss about, we are going to start bone tumors, and today specifically we are going to discuss about benign bone tumors. This bone tumors topic is important both for your theory exam, practical exam. In practical, they'll keep a short case, which is usually that one of the bone tumors case will be kept as a short case in your examination. And it is also important for your post-graduation entrance exam point of view. So let us look into the topic today. So what are bone tumors? Bone tumors are nothing but neoplasia or uncontrolled proliferation of different types of cells of the bone. Basically, these neoplasias are mesenchymal in origin, and they are all bone sarcomas. So what makes these bone tumors special from other tumors? First thing is the presentation of different tumors is different. Mostly, most of the benign bone tumors, they are incidental findings. That is, the patient may have some trivial trauma, and for that trauma, he will get an X-ray done, and on that X-ray, you will find some neoplasia there. So the presentation itself is very different. And as we go through the lesson, you can appreciate that for each type of bone tumor, the differential diagnosis is very wide. And other most important thing is the bone tumors prevalence is in young individuals. Young individuals, it is more. And coming to the malignant bone tumors, it has bimodal distribution, one in the younger age group and other one in the elderly age group. So we have to take we should be very precautious, and we have to take care while dealing with those bone tumor cases. The management should be appropriate. There should not be much delay. And please don't draw while I am telling you. And coming to the classifications of bone tumors. So basically the bone tumors, they are differentiated based on the predominant matrix component. That is the type of matrix which is produced in the bone tumor, as well as the type of cell within the lesion. So based on it, the bone tumors are classified. And usually each bone tumor has clinically, radiologically, and histologically, they have their own different behavior, each type of tissue. So now let us go further into the classification. Based on the tissue of origin, we have bone, the main matrix, if it is bony matrix, or if it arises from the osteoblasts, you have different types of bone tumors, that is bone producing or osteoid producing tumors, which are osteoid osteoma, osteoblastoma, and osteoma. These are the benign varieties, and osteosarcoma is the malignant variety where excess bone or excess osteoid is produced. Whereas from the cartilage, we have the osteochondroma, chondroblastoma, enchondroma, and chondromyxoid fibroma. Their malignant counterpart is chondrosarcoma. And from other fibrous tissue, which is, as we see, the bone is connective tissue, which has bone, cartilage. In a long bone, we have cartilage at the ends, at the articular ends, and then bone and other things. So from each specific type of cell or tissue, one particular neoplasm usually we can find out. From the fibrous tissue, we have the fibrous cortical defect, non-ossifying fibroma, and fibrosarcoma is the malignant variant. And then coming to some tumors like giant cell tumor and aneurysmal bone cyst, the exact tissue of origin is still unknown. So in today's session, we are going to discuss about few benign bone forming and cartilage forming tumors, and as well as giant cell tumor and aneurysmal bone cyst. So whenever we are dealing with a case of bone tumors, the location of the bone tumor is very important for diagnosing the tumor. So some of the lesions which arise from the epiphyseal area, they are giant cell tumor and chondroblastoma from today's lesson which we are discussing. And from the diaphyseal area, we have Ewing's sarcoma, fibrous dysplasia, adamantinoma, etc. And from the metaphyseal area, we have the osteoid osteoma, osteochondroma, osteoblastoma, and different bone cysts, and osteogenic sarcoma. These are the different tumors found in the metaphyseal region. So same thing in pictorial representation. I am pointing it out with my cursor. You can see here the giant cell tumor. It is usually found in an adult bone. It is found in metaphyseal and epiphyseal junction and nearer to the articular cartilage, and it is eccentric tumor. You can see it here. And then usually chondroblastoma, it arises in the epiphysis. And coming to the other tumors like simple bone cyst, etc., they are seen in the metaphyseal region. Osteoid osteoma also roughly in the metadiaphyseal junction. Osteochondroma, it arises from the metaphyseal junction, metaphyseal area. And Ewing's sarcoma, it arises from the diaphyseal area. Osteosarcoma from the metaphysis. This picture please keep in mind, because mostly these questions will be asked in your entrance examination. And then coming to the evaluation of bone tumors. Now for a few minutes I am going to discuss about how we are going to approach towards a case of bone tumor. That is a swelling which arises from the bone. When we keep a swelling which arises from the bone, it need not be a bone tumor. It can also be chronic infectious condition like chronic osteomyelitis. But today, as we are discussing regarding bone tumors, we should see how a bone swelling, if it were a bone tumor, should be evaluated. First thing, you have to go for history and physical examination, where you have pain and swelling. Usually most of the benign bone tumors are painless. However, in osteosarcoma, pain is the predominant feature. Pain followed by swelling is seen in osteosarcoma. Whereas in most of the benign tumors, it is the swelling which is the predominant symptom, and pain it is a later symptom. And then coming to the paresthesias. If this bone tumor, it grows in size and it impinges on the neurovascular structures, it causes paresthesias and other vascular symptoms. So these are the usually three main complaints with which the patient presents. And further evaluation, you need to do different routine blood investigations, which I am going to tell later, and different tumor markers are also done. Then plain X-ray, it is the main investigation of choice while we are evaluating bone tumors initially. Then it is followed by CT scan, MRI, and other modalities of investigation are bone scan, PET CT, and then biopsy with histopathological examination. Now let us see what we are going to emphasize upon in history. Usually age of the patient. Coming to the age of the patient, most of the benign bone tumors, they occur in second to third decade, first, second and third decade maximum. Most of the bone tumors occur during that time. Whereas the malignant bone tumors, they have bimodal distribution, that is, they either occur in early part of the life, that is 15 to 30 years, and again in the elderly age group. That we have to keep in mind. Certain bone tumors are rare after attaining puberty, like aneurysmal bone cyst. In mature skeleton, it is rare to find certain tumors like aneurysmal bone cyst. And coming to the sex of the patient, most of the bone tumors, they are found in males. However, there are certain bone tumors like giant cell tumor, fibrous dysplasia, which are more common in females. They are more common. And coming to the onset and duration. Coming to the onset, most of them are insidious in onset and they progress gradually, most of the benign bone tumors. If there is any sudden increase in size or increase in pain, you have to suspect of malignant transformation, or if there is a sudden onset of pain, you can also think of pathological fracture. So again, I told about the pain in the previous slide when we discussed. And coming to the, you have to evaluate whether there are any similar swellings in the body. Usually diaphyseal eclasia, where there are multiple osteochondromas in the body. That is one of the conditions where multiple swellings are seen. And same way, there are hereditary multiple exhaustosis. These are few conditions where multiple swellings are seen. And family history of bone tumors are also important because most of them are familiar. And coming to the examination, as I showed earlier, the site of the swelling is very important, whether it is located adjacent to the joint or whether it is located near the diaphysis. That is very important while examining. And then the size of the swelling, shape, similar swellings we have seen. And coming to the edge, most of the benign bone tumors, they have well-defined edges. And coming to the malignant bone tumors, the edge is not well-defined. And coming to the consistency, most of them are hard to firm. However, in malignant tumors like osteosarcoma, we have variable consistency. That is, some part of the swelling will be hard, some part will be firm, some part will be soft. Like that, the consistency in the same swelling is variable. It is not uniform. Then you have to suspect the swelling to be malignant. Then coming to the pulsatile swellings, can we see any pulsatile swellings in bone tumors? Bone is a hard, rigid structure. And can we really appreciate pulsatile swellings in bone tumors? Yes, in certain varieties of tumors like telangiectatic osteosarcoma, we can find the pulsatile swellings. And most importantly, along with that, you have to look for other signs like engorged veins over the surface of the swelling. And then the surface usually will be irregular. And coming to the other examinations, you have to see for lymph node examination. That is very important when you are both for infections as well as for tumors. Lymph node, your examination is not complete without lymph node examination and observing for the neurovascular deficits, distal neurovascular deficits. Muscle wasting will be seen if it is a painful condition and for a prolonged period of time the patient is not using the limb, you will see the muscle wasting. So these are all the different features which you have to make a brief note of it during your examination. And coming to the laboratory tests, there are different tests. You have to go for complete blood picture, and also you have to keep in mind that there is multiple myeloma which affects the bone, which arises from the marrow. So complete blood picture is necessary, and serum protein electrophoresis for M protein is also necessary. You have to also perform ESR to rule out infection and other conditions. Serum calcium, am I audible? Am I audible? Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So let us continue. So coming to the another important modality of investigation, which is the plain X-ray. Whenever you are reading a plain X-ray of bone tumor, these are the 5 important things which you have to consider. First thing is the anatomic side, that is whether the lesion is at epiphysis, metaphysis or diaphysis. That is one thing we have to see. Based on that, you can have a rough idea what the tumor could be. And second thing is borders of the tumor, which I am going to tell later. And the surrounding bony destruction and zone of transition. These are the 2 things which we have to see to determine whether the tumor is malignant or benign variety. And then coming to the matrix produced in the bone tumor, and the 5th one is periosteal reaction. These are the 5 important parameters which we are going to consider while reading a plain X-ray. So coming to the anatomic side, I have already shown you this picture. If a tumor is arising from the epiphysis, then you can And if it is eccentric in location, you can keep two differential diagnoses in mind. It could be either chondroblastoma or giant cell tumor. If it is arising from the bone, from the metaphyseal region, and if it is growing out, it can be an osteochondroma. So we will see subsequently when we discuss the features of each tumor, you will understand. So then coming to the borders of the tumor. So suppose this is a bone. Now I'm going to tell you about the borders and then zone of transition as well as the destruction of the bone. These 3 points now I'm going to finish. Suppose this is a bone tumor. So there are two things which you have to consider. Whenever there is a tumor inside the bone, the tumor cells through different signaling pathways, they either influence the osteoblasts or osteoclasts of the bone and lead to, they activate the cells and lead to some destructive process in the bone. And when the tumor, it causes some destruction in the bone, the healthy bone, the normal bone tries to minimize the destruction. So if a tumor is a slow growing tumor, the normal bone has enough time to counter the damaging mechanisms of the tumor. So here, the border, that is the region between the tumor tissue and the healthy tissue, will be well demarcated in case of a benign bone tumor. Since the process of destruction will be lesser than that of the healing mechanisms of the bone, the clear-cut zone of transition will be there. That is, you can differentiate easily between the diseased area and the healthy area. So the border will be clear-cut and distinct in case of a benign bone tumor. As the tumor becomes more and more aggressive, suppose the tumor becomes more and more aggressive, this invading mechanism or destructing mechanism will be more compared to that of the repair. So the transition, the borders will not be very clear here in the X-ray, as well as the zone of transition will be not clear. It will be very wide. Since some part of the bone will be reacting well, will be repairing fast, some part will not be repairing fast, you will not have a distinct zone of transition. It will be a wide zone of transition. These are the two things which you have to remember. Am I clear so far? Since the chart is on, you can express if you got it or not. And the next thing is coming to the destruction of the bone. Usually there are 3 types of destruction. One is geographic destruction, moth-eaten type of bone destruction, and the third one is permeative destruction. In a benign bone tumor, only certain region, one region of the bone is involved. That is the geographic pattern of bone destruction. Sometimes what happens, just if some moth bites away the cloth, you can find multiple holes in the cloth at different regions. So in moth-eaten pattern, you will have different geographical destruction lesions spread over an area. Whereas in permeative pattern, what happens? This area of destruction is not clear. It is ill-defined and it involves complete cortex. It spreads longitudinally as well as transversely. If it spreads transversely, what happens? There will be a breach in the cortex and there will be a pathological fracture. If it goes in longitudinally, there will be destruction of the bone along the diaphysis of the bone. So am I clear so far? No response in the chat. Okay. So coming to the 5th one, that is the periosteal reaction. periosteal reaction. Assume it to be a long bone, and here you have the tumor, and this is the outer periosteal layer. So whenever this layer it irritates the this tumor it irritates the periosteum, the inner layer of the periosteum gets activated, and there will be new bone formation. It can be either thick, usually in benign bone tumor, since it is slow process, there will be thick amorphous bone formation. In malignant bone tumors, multiple layers like onion peel you will see. That is in the Ewing sarcoma, you can see. This is the periosteal reaction. It is not pathognomonic of bone tumors, because you can see this periosteal reaction even in case of infections. In osteomyelitis also, you can see the periosteal reaction. So then you have so when you get, so that is X-ray is one of the imaging modality, and we have other imaging modalities like CT scan, where you can appreciate the cortical breach very clearly, and then you can have a three-dimensional idea of the tumor. In X-ray you can have only a two-dimensional view, whereas in CT scan you can appreciate the three-dimensional structure of the tumor, and in MRI you can appreciate the surrounding soft tissues involvement as well as the medullary cavity involvement in case of MRI. And coming to the PET CT, in PET CT you can appreciate if there are any increased activity. When there is increased activity of the tumor or anything, there will be increased uptake of the glucose at that particular areas, which gives hotspots of the in PET scan. So we can find out if there are any other metastasis of the tumor, or if there are any skip lesions, that is a lesion found elsewhere in the same bone or in the same limb. So you can see if there are any skip lesions or metastasis in case of PET scan. So after having a thorough imaging investigations, and after having, by this time you have a faint idea whether the tumor is benign or aggressive. So then we have to go for biopsy, histopathological examination for definitive diagnosis of the tumor. So this biopsy, it can be done either by FNAC, fine needle aspiration cytology, or core needle biopsy, or you can also go for an open incisional biopsy. If you suspect a tumor to be malignant one, better send the patient for an oncology consultation before going for biopsy, and preferably the surgeon who goes for definitive management of the tumor should do biopsy. These are few important things. And then coming to the principles, you have to follow strict aseptic precautions, because any infection will lead to wound problems and limb salvage will become difficult in case of dealing with bone tumors. And whenever you are taking a bone tumor, the surrounding soft tissue margins should also be sampled. And when you are removing a part of bone, you have to see that the defect which you have created should be circular. It should be circular. And then you have to, if more than 1/3 of the circumference of the bone is involved, you may have to go for prophylactic fixation to prevent fracture of the bone. And this cavity should also be filled with bone graft or bone cement for the bone to be strong. And regarding the tourniquet use, when we apply tourniquet, you will have a bloodless field, and it is easy to visualize, usually in case of surgeries. But in case of tumors, you should not exsanguinate the limb, that is, you should not lift the limb and hold it for a long time, because there is chance of the tumor cells spreading proximally. So you should not exsanguinate even if you use the tourniquet. And after removing the tourniquet, complete hemostasis should be achieved before closing the wound. Otherwise, some of the cells may remain back in the area, tumor cells. So while doing, when we are doing the biopsy, usually I am showing with the cursor, the incision should be vertical. Usually vertical incisions should be given, not horizontal incisions as shown in the picture. And whenever you are going for a tumor, you should not violate multiple anatomical compartments. And whenever avoid major neurovascular structures. And whenever you are placing a drain, put it along the line of the incision here, not as shown here, across, somewhere far away from the main incision site, because it will lead to the contamination of all this tissue with the tumor cells. So that you have to keep a note of it. So these are basically the principles of bone tumors. Coming to the treatment aspect, with respect to benign bone tumors, usually if they are asymptomatic and some of the bone tumors, it can be left like that and they resolve over time. Some bone tumors, they have to be treated surgically by excision, complete excision or curettage, and depending on the defect, they can be bone grafted. If it is an expendable bone, like ulna or fibula, that part of the bone can be removed. So these are the three modalities. One is conservative, the other one is curettage, third one is excision or excision. And sometimes after curating the bone, we'll use some agents like phenol to kill the residual tumor cells in the area, or you fill it with bone cement. When you fill it with bone cement, it causes an exothermic reaction which destroys the residual tumor cells. So these are the principles of treatment, because it will be same for all bone tumors and there will not be much variation. Now I am going into the benign bone tumors. So the first one is osteoid osteoma, most commonly seen in males and is seen in second to third decades. Usually occurs in the diaphysis or metaphysis. Proximal femur is the most common site. And the characteristic feature of osteoid osteoma is there will be a dull, severe pain, which is worse at night, and characteristically it is relieved by taking NSAIDs. Osteoblastoma is also a similar tumor with similar male preponderance, and it is also seen in second to third decades and same site also. But the differentiating feature is the pain which is relieved by NSAIDs is characteristically seen in osteoid osteoma, not seen in osteoblastoma. Coming to the clinical features, please remember that. And coming to the plain radiography, you can appreciate here. There will be a central lytic area or radiolucent nidus. This is the nidus, which is surrounded by dense reactive sclerosis of the dense cortical bone is seen here. This is the reactive sclerosis. This is the central nidus. This is the picture of osteoid osteoma. In osteoblastoma also you have similar picture, same features, but the differentiating feature here is in osteoblastoma, here the size of the tumor is more than 2 centimeters in osteoblastoma. In osteoblastoma, it is more than 2 centimeters. In osteoid osteoma, it is less than 2 centimeters. The reactive sclerosis around the central nidus will be more in the osteoid osteoma and it is less in the osteoblastoma. And when we do a bone scan, there will be increased uptake in the site of lesion. So this is just, you remember it for your PG entrance bit. In bone scan, you have double density sign or headlight and fog sign. It is seen in osteoid osteoma. This is bone scan. Am I audible now? Please respond. Somebody, Shruti, am I audible? Okay. So now we are going to see about the microscopic picture of osteoid osteoma. So here this pinkish material which you see here is the dense deposition of the osteoid, and surrounding that osteoid you can see the rimming by the different osteoblast cells. Since it is a vascular tumor, you can also see vasculature here. This is the vasculature. So this is all about the microscopic appearance. And coming to the treatment, as I told you earlier, it is by treatment with NSAIDs. And then there is a new technique called percutaneous radiofrequency ablation. When you come to your ortho OT, you can appreciate a machine called CM in which you can localize the lesion. And this procedure can also be done under CT guidance. Under that, you will localize the lesion, and using the radio frequency waves, you can ablate, you can kill the, you can destroy the tumor. Surgically, en bloc resection, that is the removing the entire tumor, or you will just burr down the bone till you appreciate the normal bone. The tumor bone is burred down till you appreciate the normal bone. And the characteristic feature is, as soon as this tumor is removed, the pain because of osteoid osteoma will get relieved. So this is all about osteoid osteoma. And then you have osteoblastoma. As I told earlier, it is also one of the benign bone forming tumor where there will be excess production of the osteoid and oven bone. But however, then the surrounding, this is the tumor. The central area is the osteoid which is formed, and this is the surrounding reactive zone. See how thin it is compared to that of osteoid osteoma. So this is one of the differentiating features, and most commonly vertebral column is involved, osteoblastoma, whereas osteoid osteoma is seen in the long bones. So, and so these are the major differentiating features: size of the tumor, surrounding reactive sclerosis, the most common site of the occurrence, as well as the pain, characteristic night pain, which is relieved by taking NSAIDs. So these are the few differentiating features between osteoid and osteoid osteoma and osteoblastoma. Rest of the features, including the age, common age of occurrence, male preponderance, everything is same. So here you can see same thing, or increased osteoid production surrounded by mature osteoblasts are seen here. And same treatment, it is curated. The bone tumor, curettage and bone grafting is the usual mode of treatment. Usually, since the recurrence rate is high, along with the tumor, some surrounding normal bone should also be removed while treating this osteoid osteoma. This is just nothing but brief. All the differences between osteoid osteoma and osteoblastoma were kept in same slide. And coming to the next lesion, which is osteochondroma. It is a benign cartilaginous neoplasm which is derived from an subperiosteal cell of the facial cartilage. I will show you it. So here, this is the facial cartilage. And this facial cartilage, it gradually slowly herniates outside like this. So gradually this stalk develops like this. So this is the upper part is the cartilage, and here this is the bony outgrowth. It can be either pedunculated or sessile. So the characteristic feature is this outgrowth. Into this outgrowth, it is continuous with the cortex of the parent bone. There is a cortical tissue, and the medulla also grows into it, and over that you have the cartilaginous cap. So these are the characteristic features of osteochondroma. Most commonly seen in males and common in second decade of life, usually common in distal femur and proximal tibia. So this is more common in metaphysis, and it grows away from the joint. So this is the joint here, so it grows away from the joint. It is either sessile, that means the stalk will not be present. The stalk which I am showing with the cursor may not be present, or sometimes it can be pedunculated. Usually it is painless, and it is only an incidental finding. The patient has some trivial trauma, and then he gets an X-ray done, then he finds out this osteochondroma arising. So the factors which draw attention to the osteochondroma are if there is any growth disturbance of the extremity, or if there is any mechanical obstruction to the movement, then you may have to intervene. And sometimes the surrounding soft tissues, tendons, nerves or vessels may also be impinging or may get impinged by the swelling. So these are all the different factors which draw attention towards the osteochondroma in a patient. So here you can see this is sessile one. See, this is the growth. See, this is all the cartilage cap, and usually over this cartilage cap you will find bursal tissue. And they grow away from the growing end of the long bones. Usually knee is the growing end, so it grows away from the knee joint. So one more important thing is the osteochondroma, it appears larger intraoperatively compared to that of an X-ray. This is an important PG point because this is, you have a cartilaginous cap over here, cartilaginous cap, and you cannot appreciate cartilaginous cap. Can you appreciate hyaline cartilage of the joint here? You cannot appreciate. Same way, here the hyaline cartilaginous cap and the bursal tissue over it cannot be appreciated over the osteochondroma in a plain X-ray. Whereas when you take an ultrasound or MRI, you can appreciate the thickness of the cartilaginous cap. And remember this point. And second important point is this osteochondroma grows only until the age of skeletal maturity. After that, it will not grow. So if the thickness of this cartilaginous cap is more than 2 centimeters, if the growth of this tumor continues even after attainment of puberty, or if there is if these two conditions are met, there are chances of malignant transformation of osteochondroma. And one more important point, this osteoblastoma can undergo malignant transformation into osteosarcoma. Osteoid osteoma will not undergo malignant transformation, first point. And second thing, this osteochondroma will get sarcomatous change, it gets changed into chondrosarcoma. So these are the things which you have to remember. So here you can see the pedunculated osteochondroma. Same thing which I told you earlier. The ultrasound, it helps to appreciate the thickness of the cartilaginous cap. Now we are going to see the gross image. Here you can see, I am showing it with the cursor. This is the cortical bone. Since it outgrows with the cortex of the parent bone, this is the cortical rim, and inside you can find the cancellous bone. This is the overlying cartilaginous cap. This is the overlying cartilaginous cap, and this is the cortical rim, and this is the cancellous medullary bone. This is the gross appearance intraoperatively. And this structure resembles the physis. See, this is all the cartilaginous tissue here, and here you can see the bone. So this is the cross section of the histological appearance of osteochondroma. In asymptomatic lesions, it can be left because as the age advances, the growth will stop and there will not be necessary for any excision. However, excision is warranted if there are any local pressure effects and when there is risk of malignant transformation. That is, if there is increase in the size of the cartilaginous cap and if the growth continues even after attainment of puberty, then you have to go for the excision of the osteochondroma. And whenever you are excising the osteochondroma, right from the base, stalk and some surrounding normal bone should also be removed. While removing, you have to even excise the base and stalk along with a cuff of normal bone should also be removed. So these are the treatment principles of osteochondroma. So still there are many more things to be discussed, and sir is waiting outside, SPM faculty. So I'm stopping for today, and in the next class we will continue from the enchondroma. See you, and if any doubts are there, please mail to my email ID sivavari@gmail.com, sivavari@gmail.com. So since sir is waiting, I have to leave the class in between, and we'll continue with this topic in the next sessions. Okay, thank you.